Once upon a time, there lived a fabulously rich man. But despite having everything that could be possessed on earth, he was unhappy. He was always sad and thoughtful, and even looked like a sick person. He went to famous and distinguished doctors, but they found him healthy and saw no reason for his constant sadness. The rich man tried all sorts of things to feel happier. He traveled the world, started new and new occupations, went to study with famous sages. Nothing helped. He still felt unhappy. One day he went to a spiritual teacher for advice. "The problem is," said the teacher, "that you do not share your wealth and success with anyone. You, as far as I hear, have never even given alms to the poor. If you want to be happy, help others." This was something new. The rich man was delighted and thought, after all, why not sacrifice some of my wealth for the poor and the needy? If this is the solution to my problem, great. But he soon realized that this task was not so easy. Since he was not used to giving money for something that he did not benefit from, it turned out that he did not even know where to start. Yes, many people really looked poor. But whether they were really poor or just pretending, he wondered. On the other hand, those who really need help may be ashamed of their poverty and hide it out of pride. No, I shouldn't give money to just anyone. There might be unworthy people who would use it for some bad deed, the rich man concluded. He had to find a way to show him who the truly needy people were. He thought, and finally, an insight struck him. He would give money to people who had lost all hope. This is real poverty. He went to visit asylums, prisons, streets, and poorhouses. But alas, he spoke to many people, to the sick, to the lonely, to the elderly, to beggars, to the ruined and abandoned by all people. But from no one did he receive the answer, "I have no more hope." So while he was walking through the streets, one day he heard a long groan coming from a dilapidated house. He immediately headed there, and among the ruins, he found a man in ragged clothes, all covered with wounds, dirty and desperate. The unfortunate man seemed at the limit of his strength. "What happened to you?" the rich man asked worriedly. "Oh, don't ask," the poor man cried. "A great misfortune has befallen me. I have lost everything I had, my job, my home, my family, my money. I don't even have anything to put in my mouth. I took shelter in this old ruin, but the dirt has now made me sick with some kind of disease, and I'm all over with wounds." "Can I ask you something, man?" The rich man immediately perked up. "Do you have any hope?" "Of course I do. As long as I'm on earth, as long as I do not go to the grave, I have hope. You know, remember one thing. Only those who are in the cemeteries, only they have no hope." "Cemeteries," repeated the rich man. "If only those who are in the cemeteries have no hope, then I should give my money to them. Well, it is true that this is not the same as helping the poor, but I can try. At least I will be sure that the money will not fall into the wrong hands." He waited for the night, took a bag of money, and headed to the cemetery. He dug up the first grave he came across and buried the money in it. Suddenly, he felt better. It was as if a stone had been lifted from his shoulders. Finally, he found someone who had no hope. Years passed. The rich man forgot about this period of his life and about the bag of money buried in the grave. And perhaps he would never have remembered it again if his life had not turned 180 degrees. There came a time when success and wealth turned their backs on him. First, he lost a small portion of his possessions, then a more serious defeat, and finally, he was completely ruined. Suddenly, he found himself on the verge of poverty. He no longer had a roof over his head or even food to eat. Then, he remembered the buried money. This was his last hope. As many years ago, he waited until midnight and headed to the cemetery with a shovel in his hands. He found a grave and began to dig. Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him. "Don't move! Slowly put down the shovel and stand up." He followed the orders and found himself face to face with the city guard. "So you came in the middle of the night to steal from the dead," shouted the guard. The poor man tried to explain something, but from fear and panic, he lost his mind and words. They took him to prison, and the next day, they took him to court. The once rich and successful man now stood poor and despised like a common criminal before the judge. He realized that his story sounded ridiculous and was almost impossible to believe, but the only thing he kept repeating to himself were the words of that unfortunate man from the dilapidated house many years ago. "While I am on earth until I go to the grave, I have hope." After hearing the accusation, the judge turned to him and asked, "What can you say in your defense?" "Your Honor, things are not as they seem. I did not intend to rob the graves of the dead. Many years ago, I buried some money in this grave because I was looking for a person who had no hope left. At the time, I wanted to give money to someone who was truly in need, but I never found a person who had lost every last drop of hope. And one day, amidst the ruins, I met a poor and decrepit man, all covered with wounds. He had lost everything, but to this day I remember his words that only those who are in the cemetery have no hope. So I buried the money in a grave. But now I myself am decrepit, and I decided to take it back." "Excuse me, Your Honor," the guard intervened, "but this man is clearly lying. I have never heard anything more absurd than this. Do you believe him?" "Yes, I believe him," the judge muttered, looking sympathetically at the defendant. "This man is telling the absolute truth. Let him go." Finding himself free, the former rich man happily walked down the street, breathing in the fresh air and forgetting all his troubles. "How fortunate that this judge believed me. By the way, his face is very familiar to me. Where have I met him before?" he thought. How life turns around. The judge thought after releasing the defendant, "I will never forget the face of that man who so insistently asked me if I had hope."